Okay, now we're going to get started on the loop technique, or sometimes you will see it referred to as the pile weave. So that's this right here, where you're creating these loops. And so for this one, to get your tools ready, we are going to use the weaving needle. And this is going to be for a plain weave that will help secure each of the loops in place, so you won't even see it. So if you want to use a scrap of yarn, this is a good time to use that because it's hardly going to show. And so you'll just have maybe a nice big long arm span. Go ahead and tie that on. So you've got that ready. And then we're gonna need the weaving needle, and we're gonna be doing a double strand of yarn. And this one I would do like a good 3 or 4 arm spans. And just like we did on the sumac, where we want to do the double, we'll just thread it through the needle and then just go ahead and try to pull it through to center on that piece of yarn. So we're going to be using these simultaneously. The most important piece is the chopstick. So this also kind of determines the width of your loops. So you can also get an idea of if you wanted to use a knitting needle or just something that is wider, then you'll get bigger loops. But what I love about the chopstick is the tapered end will help you to feed it through. And so we are doing basically just a plain weave to get started. So go ahead and do over under with the yarn that's on the yarn needle. And you'll pull that through. And then the first one's always a little tricky because you have this tail, because you're gonna be feeding the chopstick through, but you want to be always pushing it towards the end with all of the slack, because that's what you're going to be pulling from. And so everywhere where the yarn is on top of the warp thread, we want to be sticking the chopstick through. But you're never going to be weaving the chopstick over under any threads. You always want to make sure that it's always staying on top of the weaving. So sometimes to get started, because it always wants to pull from here, I will just go ahead and yank the yarn and basically put it on top of the chopstick. Always pulling from the end with all the slack. And so then you'll leave this in the chopstick, and we're gonna do 2 rows of plain weave on top of it with the wooden weaving needle. And this will just help secure it in place. So we'll go in towards the center. And then back out. Still doing my angle and arcing, so making sure that that is nice and secure. Let's just set that off to the side, and then now you can go ahead and pull out that chopstick, and you see that the loops stay. And so then now we just go back and do it again. Because I'm right-handed, I always find it much easier also going back this way. I find that my right hand can manipulate the chopstick much easier. So again, you're just keeping that chopstick in there while you take the wooden weaving needle and do 2 rows of plain weave.
Just gotta make sure we keep all of our ends straight here. And then we'll go back again. And then we are just going to keep doing the same thing over and over until we've created enough rows of the pile weave where we are filling in this space and we get up to where the bottom of this other triangle is. All right, so now we've got our rows finished, so we're even with this side. So you can go ahead, cut some tails. And then this one also is kind of fun, like you can just fluff it up a bit so it's not so uniform looking. And then now on top of this, we are going to go ahead and do 12 more rows of plain weave. You can use your wooden weaving needle or you can use the stick Shuttle. And then we will be ready to start the next technique. So now that we've got our 12 rows done, we've kind of built some space in between the techniques, so we are ready to go ahead and get started on the next technique, which is the sumac again, but we're going to be using it with the roving.